Hello friends and subscribers, a very warm welcome back to Readings in Impact Investing. My name is Daniel Rosehill and this is a new podcast also mirrored onto YouTube, providing readings of important source material intended really for those working in the field of impact investing. If you want to get those impact investing reports through audio, please consider subscribing. This podcast is available at readingsiниmpact.org. And it's also up on, all the podcast distribution platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, to name but a few. So today I'm going to be reading from the December 2023 snapshot, which was published by Brookings for social and development impact bonds by the numbers. So they put out this monthly report showing how many DIBs and SIBs are out there, basically. And you can find this by Googling social impact bonds by the numbers, and you should get pretty quickly to that page on the Brookings site. And this comes out every month. So what I'm going to do is look at these quarterly. I think monthly the figures don't change all that much. So I'm going to do quarterly updates. And this is a December update. So the January 2024 one will hopefully be coming up soon. But just to get started on reading these, I'm going to start with the December 2023. So just at the outset, I want to explain what the difference is between social impact bonds or SIBs and development impact bonds and DIBs, because it does all get a little bit confusing. I'm quoting here from the Government Outcomes Lab, and what they say about this. In low and middle income countries, impact bonds are referred to as development impact bonds, DIBs. There is a distinction to be made here that is more than the terminology we use. The difference between SIBs and DIBs is who pays for the outcomes. In a social impact bond, the outcome payer is generally a domestic government, while in a DIB, the outcome payer may be a donor, such as a government or multilateral aid agency or philanthropic funding. You can see this distinction in the examples provided above. In practice, DIB is often used interchangeably with what in our Indigo dataset are identified as international impact bonds, those in which at least one of the outcome payers is located in a different country from the service delivery. So it's all a little bit confusing. There's all different kinds of terminology floating about in the space, but roughly that is it. That the SIB is a government in a medium to high income country. DIBs are really more intended as development finance, so that the outcomes payer, and in another episode, maybe I'll record this webpage because it's good, explaining the kind of tripartite mechanism involved in these impact bonds, where you have the delivery organization, the funder, and the outcome payer, three different parties, and so basically one for wealthy countries, broadly speaking, targeting social good, and one for kind of wrapped into development finance, really. So I'm just going to read the intro here. Since 2014, Brookings has developed and maintained a comprehensive database on the global impact bonds market. The data here represent a snapshot from that database and are updated each month. As a note, there are a number of projects globally which use the term impact bond, but which don't meet our definition of an impact bond, which is a series of contractual agreements which ensure payment for social or environmental outcomes achieved, upfront repayable finance provided by the service provider by a third party, the repayment of which is at least partially conditional on achieving specified outcomes. Additionally, the counting of impact bonds may vary depending on the project, leading to some discrepancies in total numbers. Some sources, for example, may count a project that has expanded to multiple municipalities as one impact bond, while in others they may be counted as multiple. So here's the top line figure, is that when they put this together in December, there were 253 impact bonds, 236 social impact bonds, and 17 development impact bonds. So that the terrible nature of my mathematic competency would not be displayed on air, I did this calculation just before recording. So that comes out to 93% in SIBs and 7% in DIBs. So the vast majority, more than 9 out of 10 impact bonds, are SIBs rather than DIBs. They are operating in 40 plus countries, and you can also see on the report here the geographic distribution, that we can see that it's not really even. There are certainly centers of denser activity. They use the darkest shade of blue for North America, Britain, which is not surprising as Britain is kind of the innovator or the world leader in the field of social finance, and Portugal, interestingly enough, is also in blue. And then we have the next category, which is a lighter shaded blue for 3 to 15 each. And we can see different, Canada is an example of that. And then we have 1 to 2 in parts of South America. And then we also have no shading, which is where there aren't any DIBs. And we can actually see, quite interestingly, you have large swathes of the globe where they aren't recording any impact bonds. If you do want to get this report, I'll drop a link in the YouTube description and the podcast description so you can see for yourself. Next slide is impact bonds contracted by sector. So social welfare 79, employment 70, education 45, health 41, criminal justice 14, and environmental and agriculture 4. So basically the majority of SIBs are in 2 main domains, social welfare and employment. In employment, we have been seeing the rise of something called career impact bonds, SIBs. I don't think they're counting these separately, so they're probably lumping those under SIBs. So that is just to remark as well. And there are other variants of, I think we're probably going to see, as impact bonds grow, we're going to see more names for different types of impact bonds focused on different interventions. There's certainly more than SIBs, DIBs, and confusingly, career impact bonds is also pronounced SIBs. So there's actually 2 SIBs and 1 DIB, and there's a few other variants as well. Key impact bond stats: the average contract duration is 52 months, and that is equal to 4 years and 3 months. So your average impact bond is 4 years, little under 4.5 years in duration. The average amount of upfront capital is $3.15 million US. The sum of upfront capital across all these impact bonds is $513.13 million, so about $500 million thereabouts. And average beneficiaries 18,096. And they have in parentheses here that over half serve 500 beneficiaries or fewer. So it's not really a very equal distribution. More than half of impact bonds are relatively speaking, very small. And that average is clearly being weighed up a lot by ones with more. So 4 years, 3 million average upfront capital. Across the impact bonds, we're seeing $500 million worth of capital deployed, and about 18,000 people on average are beneficiaries, but more than half of the SIBs are less than 500 beneficiaries. This is a final slide, 32 impact bonds in low and middle income countries. There are 16 DIBs and 16 SIBs in LMICs, that is low and middle income countries. There is an additional DIB in Chile, a high-income country, and Argentina was reclassified as a middle-income country in 2019. And so among those 32 impact bonds in low and middle-income countries, they have it again shaded 5 or more in certain geographies like South Africa, and 4, India, just to point out, is in 4. So that's it. It's a short 5-page summary of just the overall size. And as I said, this data is updated monthly. So if you do want to get the latest one, Google social and development impact bonds by the numbers, and you should be able to get that up on the Brookings website. That's it for today's episode. If you do want to get in touch with me for any reason, like to suggest that I read something, please drop me a line. It's public@DanielRosehill. That's ROSEHILL.com. Thank you for listening, and please pass on the word to your colleagues if you have colleagues who you think would benefit from getting this information and podcast. Please tell them about Readings and Impact Investment at readingsandImpact.org.